Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. This week, Laura Zander tells Shawn Busse and Jay Goltz about her approach to buying businesses. Laura says she simply recognizes that for a period of time, life will be miserable for her and for her team. That's what happened almost a year ago when she bought two businesses that were a challenge to integrate. And now, just as things calm down a bit, she expects it to happen again as she eyes another acquisition. It's also what she expects to happen as she and her husband Doug proceed with their ongoing migration to Shopify. Our sales are going to go down, says Laura. SEO is going to be rough. My biggest concern, honestly, is Doug's mental health. This whole process has been so stressful for him. Shawn, Jay, and Laura also discuss how they feel about the possibility that the 20% qualified business income deduction could go away next year when it's set to expire. You might be surprised by their answers. Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations will let owners know they are not alone in facing challenges. In fact, that's the whole idea behind the 21 Hats community, engaging with other owners to get the kinds of insights only another entrepreneur can offer. If you're interested in learning more, step one is to sign up for a free trial of the Morning Report, which highlights the most important news of the day for business owners so you don't have to go looking for it. Step two is to get on our Slack channel, where you can ask questions, get vendor recommendations, and tap the wisdom of a very impressive crowd. Just search the 21 Hats Morning Report to subscribe. Joining me this week on the podcast are regulars Shawn Busse, CEO of Kinesis, which is based in Portland, Oregon, and works with small businesses on marketing, culture, and strategy. Jay Goltz, CEO of the Goltz Group, whose companies in Chicago include a picture frame business, artist frame service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home. And Laura Zander, who is CEO of Jimmy Bean's Wool, a digital yarn store based in Reno, Nevada, and Manilintosh, a yarn manufacturer and distributor based in Fort Worth, Texas. The episode is titled, Things Are Going to Suck. Welcome, Shawn, Jay, and Laura. It's great to have you here. Laura, you've spoken a good bit here about the businesses that you've bought and how challenging it can be to integrate them into your existing business. In fact, after hearing you talk about the most recent purchase, I kind of got the impression you might never buy another business. But I've heard a rumor that you might be looking at another acquisition.
Oh my God, that's her heroine, Lauren. She loves it.
Yeah, right. So we have finally gotten traction from the two that we bought about 9 months ago, 10 months ago, and things have been clicking. They're in place. It's working. Our sales down in Texas are going to be up. Right now, we're tracking at 24% over last year, which is fantastic. And yes, there's a business that we had our eye on for the last couple of years. We felt like it would be a really good complement to what we have going right now. And they reached out a couple months ago and they're like, hey, and I've been kind of talking to them for a couple years. So it's been slow moving. So we will probably pick it up. And if we do, it won't be for another couple months. So we're trying to take it really slow.
You're waiting at least a year before buying another.
Yep, exactly. And it's so funny because one of the members of my leadership team, she's the one who's just like, daggone it, why do we keep doing this? And, blah, 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 blah. And this is a bad idea. And you're doing it every year. And I'm like, well, we're not doing it every year. And this one she really wants.
Oh.
She's like, well, yeah, but we really should get this one. And I'm like, see, this is how it happens.
Okay, but to be clear, the reason you've done all these is they were tremendous opportunities that were too good to pass up, right?
100%. And then in our world, there are some commodity products, but most of these brands are legacy brands. They were built by literally mom and pop, and there's a lot of emotional attachment from the yarn shops and from the consumers, and people don't want to see these brands go away. And we will never obviously be able to replace that emotional, we're never going to be the founders. And so we recognize that, but we'll do the best job that we can. And they've created some really special, unique products that have great history. They've got great, SEO. They've got great name recognition. And it would be really fun for us as kind of the next generation to take it and run with it and keep them alive.
You say fun, but the other thing some of them at least have in common is that they were, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think some of them were in distress when you bought them. And it meant a lot of stress for you integrating them and turning them around. Is that right?
True. Great point. What I have discovered personally, though, is that the in distress or declining, like the ones that we've been looking at have been declining, and primarily because the founders they're aging, they don't have the energy, they don't have the time and the attention, you throw COVID in there. And those, I think, are the most fun. They're the most challenging. They're the most rewarding. I mean, if we can take something that's on the decline and breathe new life into it and give it the energy that the founders weren't able to give it, it's very rewarding.
How much of it is that, and how much of it, though, is a snapshot of the industry that the industry is slow? Has the industry slowed down?
Well, there are two parts of the industry. There's the industry that's the big box, the yarn that you would buy at Michael's and Walmart and Hobby Lobby. And then there's the independent yarn shop. So similar to yours, Jay, similar to your industry, the independent yarn shop has slowed a little bit, yes, but the big box is growing. So the industry as a whole has not slowed down, but the customers are moving from higher end products to lower end products. And I think, that's part of, the economic cycle that we've seen.
Well, I got to tell you, though, because this is very similar to picture framing. I'm not sure that that's true. What could be happening is the baby boomers are getting old and leaving the marketplace. And maybe what's happened, maybe it's not that the better customers are going down market to go to a chain store. Maybe their chain store is just picking up some new customers.
Great point.
And that's what I think is happening, because I don't think the better customer. I just went to a Michael's yesterday and I just forgot, oh my God. I just don't believe a lot of people going into the custom frame shop where there's a professional behind the desk that can help them pick from beautiful moldings is going to go. It's like going from a fine steakhouse to McDonald's. I think it's a matter of they're picking up some new customers and the existing stores have lost a little bit customers just because of their aging out.
I agree. You're absolutely right. Those high-end customers aren't leaving, but there's a middle section, the Hampton Inn customer who would come in and who would buy stuff that are leaning a little more. And we see it in our sales. The less expensive products are seeing an increase in sales, and the higher end products are seeing a decrease.
And my point is, I think that's as much to do with baby boomers getting older than it. Yeah. I think that's a large part of it because it's affecting everything.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he and his girlfriend both have inordinate student debt. I couldn't believe the size of debt they had that they were servicing. And, they're in their 40s now. And, it really changes their decision making. And I think in prior generations, they would be at a place in their life right now where they would be going into the higher end places and starting to kind of go up market. And I think the combination of, less discretionary income.
What's the debt from?
Yeah, are they doctors?
Student loan debt.
I was going to say, I think the student loan thing is...
It's real. It's real.
Right. Yeah. Baby boomers is one thing and student debt is another. And I think it's absolutely had an effect on the market.
Yeah. And then the other factor is, and I think you've capitalized on this well, Laura, by being, strong online, is just buying behavior and impatience. So
yes,
my other friend who's 10 years younger than me, we were in the woodworking store the other day together, and, he was looking for this power cord for his sander. And the sales guy who's, the sales guys are all retired woodworkers in their 60s and 70s.
Aww.
Cute old guys.
We don't need a little moan there. They're in their,
It's the same as the yarn industry.
So my point being that, so the sales guy says, well, our rep is going to be in next week and I'll ask him about getting one of those cords. And before he could almost finish the sentence, my friend is ordering the cord on Amazon. And, he's like irritated by this idea that, he should have to wait any length of time to get the thing. And so I think that those two forces are really, really powerful. I'm going into far fewer brick and mortar stores these days. My behavior's really changed because I don't want to deal with traffic. I don't want to deal with lines.
Me too.
I don't want to deal with them not having the thing when I get there.
Well, I don't want to deal with people.
Laura, tell us about I'm sure there's only so much you can tell us about the business that you're considering buying, but is it in decline? Is it like the others?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's in decline in that the founders have just not been able to put the energy into it, as opposed to being in decline because the market demand is a lot less. So, you get what you put in. So, yeah, so there's potential to grow it some. I mean, my approach is even if it doesn't grow, are we happy with it where it is? Like, does it fit in? Even if it shrinks, I mean, I'm assuming that it will shrink when we take it, if and when we take it over, that it will shrink by 25%. And simply because there will be some customers that only purchased it because the founders were the founders and, you lose some of that loyalty. And that's what we've experienced in the past. It has taken us years and years to start to grow the Madeline Tosh business back up.
So if we went to their website, it doesn't look great.
No.
It looks okay. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. It could use a facelift. It could use some work. And we just think it would complement, as we have moved away from just being this singular brand, Madeline Tosh, into the Maddie Tosh Group, which distributes 5 different brands to our wholesale customers. We think that this is a really nice complement to all of those other ones. It's a higher end product that we don't already have. It's just a nice niche. In the same way that, the Jamesons that comes from the Shetland Islands that we distribute now is a very small brand. It's only a couple $100,000 in sales. It's not a huge thing compared to all the other stuff, but it's a nice way to get into the shops. And the shops that do carry it are very loyal. And it's very unique, and there's nothing else out there on the market like it.
Laura, I'm curious, you told us a moment ago that to some extent you're seeing sales move downstream to less expensive products. But I think your vision, as you just articulated in terms of the brands you've been buying, has been to move your offerings upscale. Are you at all concerned about the conflict there?
No, because it's just volume versus price. That said, we're countering. So one of the brands that we just launched is a lower end, or a lower priced brand. And then we are launching in the next month or two, 100% acrylic yarn, which is the lowest of the low in terms of value pricing. So we're doing both. We're hitting it on both ends.
Laura, was that a big decision to go acrylic? Because you could have done that 20 years ago to compete with Joann's or Michael's.
We could have, and I probably should have. I mean, not probably. I mean, we should have done a lot of the stuff that we're doing now 10 years ago, but we didn't. I now have a team that can support it and can do it and has the experience, and I didn't have that until, 1 and 2 years ago. I mean, as we've talked about, I've hired over the last 24 months, we have picked up between 10 and 15 people from other companies. So these are people that are coming in with varied experience. They have mill experience. They have yarn development experience. They have design experience, all these things so that so they can hit the ground running. I mean, we've hired 6 and hopefully I have an interview tomorrow, maybe 7 people from our biggest competitor have come on board this summer. So now we have these people that know what they're doing and can help us do this stuff, which before, I'm just starting from scratch.
Is that what got you over the stress of digesting the previous acquisitions? these hires that you're talking about?
And to some degree, yeah. Yes, for sure. I mean, part of the stress of the previous acquisitions it's just part of the deal. I mean, it's like us, we're migrating to Shopify in the next couple weeks, hopefully. And we just keep saying, this is going to suck. It's going to be messy. Things are going to break. There is no way around it. We don't know, but we don't know what's going to break. We don't know what, otherwise it wouldn't break. We don't know what's going to be messy. Otherwise, we would fix it before it got messy. But the reality of the situation is, we're going to crash, where things are going to suck. It's going to be miserable. You are going to cry.
That is an inspiring leadership speech if I've ever heard one.
Thank you. Well, I think that it's really important. And it was the same thing with us taking on these brands, to recognize that it's normal and we will get through it. And it is going to suck for probably a month.
All right. So here's my question. You hired 6 people. They all worked out? They're all what you expected?
Yes. We have one that we're still on the fence on, but the other ones have been fantastic. Like, so fantastic, I can't even describe it.
Makes sense. I just don't think it's ever going to be 100%.
I think you're making the right call with your "it's going to suck" move. I mean,
it just is.
I think that's right, because so many companies, when they do like a new technology or do something new, they oversell it, they hype it up, and then the reality almost never lines up with the promise that they've made. And so I think being realistic is a really great move.
It's playing sports. I mean, it's playing football or basketball. Like, you get into the fourth quarter, you're exhausted. Mm-hmm. You're exhausted, you're spent, you're tired, maybe you're demoralized, and that's where grit comes in. That's where Rocky comes in.
There are so many mug things you've just sayings on mugs, like it's going to suck for them. I mean, you just spit out about 5 mugs that I'm going to have made now.
I mean, I think it's really important. It is for me anyway, to set the expectations and to just be like, look, it's going to be hard, because if you're feeling like it's hard, it's not you. It is the situation. And all we can do is together watch each other. And when you see somebody falling, you help pick them up, because you're going to be falling in a few steps, and we'll get through it together. It's not going to suck forever.
No, I don't disagree.
Laura, tell us where you are in that process. I mean, just to remind listeners who may recall, you've had a software platform that you guys built yourselves. You've had it for 20 years, and you've been looking for a way to get out of that for a long, long time. You finally made the move to go to Shopify.
Yep.
You've been talking about this. I think you've been taking active steps for months on this, correct?
For a year. Yeah, we started last October or last November is when we started talking to Shopify. We started interviewing agencies to do the work. We found an agency that we went with, or that we decided to go with, and they started work in January or February. And it's so funny. I mean, of course, they're like, yeah, it's going to take 3 to 4 months. And we're like, bullshit.
No.
There's no way. No. Like, absolutely no way. It's not going to take 3 to 4 months. It's not going to take 6. So it's been 9 months,
They're wrong by 3.
Yeah. And we hope we are shooting right now for November 1st-ish.
Right before the holidays.
Knowing that it'll be in December.
Yeah.
If not in January. I mean, it's awful. Like, but what are you going to do?
Jason Holmes on Shopify. I believe we're very happy with it.
Oh, it's a great platform. Plus, your husband designed the thing. I mean, that was the other thing, right? Like, your husband was chained to this old system, right?
Exactly. Yes, this is his retirement.
And the only person who could handle it.
Yes. Yep.
Does it concern you that the consultant was that far? I mean, why do they have to be so far off?
That's so normal. I mean, when Doug and I were doing software, Doug has always been very, very good at estimating timelines, to the point where he always seems very pessimistic, but damn it, he's usually right. And he's just like, we all are like super optimistic.
I get it, but if it's normal, these people do this for a living. How many times do you have to do this before you think, yeah, I know it seemed like 3, but since we just did 20 jobs, they all turned into be 2 or 3 times longer. Let's stop telling people it's going to be 3. I don't understand how a consulting firm can be so far off.
Because it's part of the sales process, Jay. It's part of the sales.
It's part of the sales process.
And in the sales process, if you tell somebody the truth, you lose the deal.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's an explanation. I mean,
it is the reality. You tell people what they want to hear. I'm not saying I do this, but this is what happens in the industry. They're told what they want to hear. It's terrible. It's everywhere. It's in construction. It's in software development.
Great point. Yep, exactly. It goes back to the patience and wanting instant gratification, and I don't want to wait for somebody to order the part in.
Yeah.
It's a great point and a very sad and disturbing point at the same time.
Yeah.
Laura, what's your biggest concern about what could suck when it all hits?
Honestly, I don't have any. I mean, I really don't, because I don't have any control over it. I mean, our sales are going to go down. SEO is going to be rough. My biggest concern, honestly, is Doug's mental health. This whole process has been so stressful for him. He's a developer and he likes things to be perfect, and he watches what's happening and he gets frustrated that the developers don't seem to get it, in certain ways. And so when things break, he's going to have a hard time. And me, I'm like, it's going to break, but we'll fix it. As sales they'll drop, but they'll go back up.
Do the extra months mean that you're paying a lot more for this than you expected?
Sure. Yeah, because we're paying for Shopify every month. It's $2,000 a month that we're paying on that side of it. On the developer side, I mean, it was a fixed bid, so they're the ones who are out.
Now that's interesting that it was a fixed bid.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're milking you for $2,000 a month, and the big picture is nothing. So
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I can't worry about it. I'd like to, but I can't.
Shawn, you've had an interesting technology experience lately. Want to share what's going on with your bank?
How mad can I be online? Let's say.
Go for it.
Yeah, my bank changed platforms. And they called it an upgrade, which these companies always do. And it's just been a disaster. We pay a lot of things through ACH, as a lot of companies do these days. And so with the old system, I put in place a lot of, risk mitigation tools so that not anyone could just ACH into our company and take money. So I built out all these, pre-approved companies. They didn't migrate any of that over. So now all the companies that were pre-approved and being paid like clockwork were getting rejected. And then the system would alert me, hey, this is a company that's being rejected unless you authorize it. It sent the alert out at 4 a.m. in the morning. and then I had until like 10 o'clock to approve it. And I just happened to be in a meeting all morning. So I didn't see the email. So it got rejected. And that led to a whole cascade of things. And it's just been a mess.
Is this a little bank? Medium bank?
It's a small community bank.
Which is what a lot of people encourage business owners to use.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I left Bank of America at the beginning of the pandemic. It was a great decision. The bank is very responsive and very helpful, but I just watched their communication about this, and it's just been terrible. So when Laura was saying, hey, I set the expectation it's not going to go well, I was like, they set the expectation this is going to be amazing, and it's been nothing but heartache.
I would argue I wouldn't tell someone to go to a small bank. I would tell them to go to a medium bank, because I certainly wouldn't go to the big bank, but I don't know that I'd be going to a one location small bank either.
No, they're not that small. No, they're not. It's not that small, Jay. And I don't think this is, I don't know. I'm skeptical that this doesn't happen at other banks as well that are in that kind of mid-size range, because, they're using purchased technology as opposed to their own. So anytime they change it, it's going to be a real nightmare.
See, that's what Doug always says. He's like, everybody thinks using purchased technology, it solves everything. But it doesn't. It's
really the transition that's the problem. And the way companies handle those transitions with their customers is usually they underestimate how difficult they're making the lives of their customers. Because they're only seeing it through the lens of, this is going to be so much better. This new technology is going to solve this problem for us and that problem for us. But they're not thinking their customers, even though the technology is imperfect, they've got a system to work with it. And it's sort of like just operating in the background. And I've seen this with, IT, when you change IT providers, it's just really a killer for small business and their productivity.
What's interesting is how much time as the owner of a business we spend on stuff that is not growing the business.
Yeah.
So that's where I get frustrated. Doug gets frustrated. Maybe you're getting frustrated too, is I could be spending time getting new clients. I could be spending time blah, blah, blah. But instead, I'm reading a 216-page tax document.
Yep. Yeah, I'm in it. I'm approving ACHs and then questioning this one and dealing with Intuit. Dear God, that's an awful experience too. Anybody who's on QuickBooks. To the theme of this show, right? It's I'm wearing a lot of hats right now. And a lot of them, to your point, Laura, are not adding value to the business. It's just firefighting.
Which gets to the prime question of perhaps you need another person working for you who will deal with this stuff, because maybe you should be spending your time finding new business and maybe some of the stuff you're doing should be done by somebody else.
In theory, you are 100% right, Jay. Financially, it just doesn't pan out right now. So
no, I get that too. That's the constant razor edge we're all on.
Well, and part of it is of my own making, and that part of my transition plan is to promote people into roles that I've had. So I've actually downshifted into more administrative roles and elevated others into more executive and strategic roles. And so the money is just not there when you've got kind of this duplication of effort right now. So it's a pain of transition more than anything.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I'm on the same page, Shawn. I mean, I've been, our office manager has had to suddenly retire for medical reasons a couple months ago. And so I'm literally zelling people and ACHing everybody. And I'm writing checks and sending $100 here and $50 there. And,
yeah.
And just, I just started to train somebody else, but I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. And your business is considerably larger than mine. I mean, you're in the double digits, right? In terms of millions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, even you, right? You're writing $50 ACHs.
It just is what it is, and I'm my job is to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
So I want to hit one more topic before I let you guys go. I don't want to get into the politics of this, but there is an issue that's kind of a big deal, and it's going to be an even bigger deal as we head into 2025, which is what's officially known as the qualified business income deduction. I think it's section 199A. It allows pass-through entities to deduct 20% off the top. That was part of the 2017 Trump tax cuts. It's going to expire next year, and it's part of a package. There are big questions. It would cost a lot of money to re-up all those tax breaks. What's going to happen is anybody's guess at this point. But I'm curious to get your impressions on how important is that tax break to small businesses? Anybody?
I would put that very low on my list of issues I'm dealing with. I wish that I was making so much money that I'd be crying about all the money I'm losing on the tax thing. So I don't know. It's not even on my list.
Yeah, same. It's not on my radar at all.
Shawn?
Same. Yeah. Yeah.
It's been around for a while now. Have the numbers just not been significant for any of you? Is that?
It gets down to the fact if you're making money to where it's costing you money, you're still making a lot of money. So you're making a little less money.
Yeah, great point.
Experienced owners, generally recognize where do they spend their time and energy. And if they're really fixated on tax, they're probably not looking at the right stuff in their business in terms of generating value to the business. So yeah, you can spend a lot of emotional energy worried about this or thinking about this. But at the end of the day, if I go get a new customer, it has way more impact on my business than if this goes away or stays.
Which is interesting because if you read the business press, and nobody reads it more than I do, this is portrayed as a huge issue with pluses and minuses. I think you're going to see it play out as a huge issue. And it's really fascinating to me that none of the three of you seems all that concerned.
Well, I mean, here's one of the issues here, Lauren, right? That type of a benefit is predicated on you making money.
A lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money. And so in terms of tax policy, the things I'm way more concerned about are nonsense things that are happening in my state, which are taxes on gross revenues.
Horrible.
So like right now, there's a voter-sponsored initiative to tax gross receipts for businesses above, I think it's $25 million. And it's like a huge hit, like 3%. And then that's going to be supposedly distributed as a universal basic income. So, I mean, let me tell you, folks, this is like got the business community freaking out here.
I can see that. That is beyond horrible.
Is that a concern to businesses that have revenue of less than 25 million?
Oh, absolutely. I don't have 25 million, and it would be a terrible thing for this state because
Why would it be bad for you?
Why would it be bad for me? Because first of all, prices are going to go up on everything, right? Businesses are not going to just like take this and pay it. They're going to raise their prices. And then worse, you're going to see businesses leave the state, which they've already been doing because of terrible tax policy in the state of Oregon.
I got to tell you something. The big thing in Chicago is, I'm going to move to Florida and don't have to pay any personal income tax. And like at the end of the day, it's just not that big of a percentage that I think someone's going to pick themselves up in their entire business and move to Florida. On the other hand, 3% on your gross? Absolutely move out of the state. How could you stay in business with that? That could be half your profit. That's crazy. Better yet.
Or it could be all your profit.
It could be more than your profit. You could be putting you into the hole.
Well, and see, what makes me even more concerned is that we are already past this nonsense thing called a corporate activities tax, 4 or 5 years ago, which was also a tax on gross receipts. And it went all the way down to businesses at the like $2 million level. And so like you've already got one and now they want to put another one on. And what has happened, I've seen it happen in these, especially in municipalities like our local county, which layers on even more. Businesses are literally moving out. This isn't just hyperbolic. They are literally moving away. And so that's why I'm concerned about it, Lauren. You know, it doesn't impact me directly, but in terms of the business vitality, it's a killer.
I got to tell you, we hear about, minimum wages going up. I'm going to close on this. Oh, bullshit. Most of the time, I don't buy that. This thing, though, yeah, I'd be moving. I mean, I don't know how you can stay in business if you're paying 3% on gross. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
Shawn, do you know how many other states or municipalities have such a tax?
We are being used as a guinea pig by out-of-state actors. So it's just the same with the legalization of small amounts of narcotics. I don't know if you all paid attention to that.
I think that got reversed recently, didn't it?
We finally reversed it, but we were legalizing fentanyl. And it was done by out-of-state actors who wanted to basically prove that, this would be beneficial, by not putting a bunch of quote unquote low-level drug users in jail. It was an utter disaster. And they finally reversed it. But this is the same situation. You have out-of-state actors, they fund signature collectors. And then they put these ballots on the initiative that are like, everybody gets $1,700 a year in universal basic income. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's just terrible. It's just terrible.
What are the politicians doing? Does this have support among elected officials?
No, it has no support among elected officials. It has no support among the business community. But, to Joe on the street who reads a ballot initiative that says, hey, I'm going to get $1,700 next year if I vote for this. It's attractive because they're not thinking through it, right?
Has there been any polling? Do you have any idea whether it's likely to pass or not?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of effort to put it down. I mean, the business community is super aligned against it. There's a ton of money going into, fighting it off. But we have a very vulnerable process in our state that I used to think was good, because a lot of good has come out of voter initiatives.
So let me go back to that 20% pass through one more time. One more thing. Here's my question. One of the criticisms of it has been, as you guys have suggested, that the benefit goes to a small percentage of companies. A very small percentage of very successful businesses get the majority of the payoff from this tax deduction. There's going to be this huge fight over it. What should small businesses be fighting for instead? What would be a better way to support small businesses than with this tax break?
Oh, I have an answer. I argue that a brain surgeon who makes $1 million a year compared to the business owner that makes $1 million a year, the fact of the matter is the business owner is probably leaving $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 in the business, plus he or she needs to pay taxes on it. And that, given that they're creating jobs and supporting the economy.
Wait, explain that, Jay. Not everybody understands
that's a really
that.
Good one.
No, so the brain surgeon gets paid $1 million. He ends up with whatever, $650,000 in his checking account at the end of the year. Whereas a business owner that makes $1 million is not actually seeing all that money. A lot of it's being left in the business, and a lot of it's being left in the business to pay the taxes. So, all right, the point of the story is it would be things like investment tax credits, something that gives the business owner a little break. They're creating jobs. They're creating business. Literally, I pay millions of dollars a year of taxes, real estate taxes, sales taxes, employment taxes, millions and millions of dollars. So the brain surgeon, he or she's just paying, the income tax. So it makes sense for a business owner to get a little support from the government of creating jobs and growing their business. So I do think it would be helpful to have some kind of investment tax credit to help small businesses.
I love that, especially the inventory. It's the inventory that
Absolutely.
holds us. So as an example, we have invested $500,000 at least in inventory, in adding inventory this year. So that's cash out the door.
Not deductible.
Not deductible.
Yeah,
so we
right.
still have to pay on that $500,000. What do we need to pay? Like $200 in taxes? So that $500 is not
because you get no credit for buying inventory. It's not a cost of goods sold. It's just inventory. I got to tell you, I've done speeches at MBA classes, like at Northwest, like smart schools, right? And I go through growing business, and I go, "Oh, so what do you think the problem is? Why can't I pay the bill?" No one, they've never figured it out.
They don't know.
They never consider the fact. Oh, wait, you've got to pay income tax on all that profit, and you don't have the cash. It's to Laura's point. It's in inventory and receivables. You don't have the cash.
Yeah.
So it's a strain for businesses for years. I mean, I've dealt with it for years and years and years. So yes, it would be helpful and productive for government to give us some kind of credits so that we can continue to reinvest in the business, hire more people, pay more payroll taxes, blah, 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 blah.
Just to clarify, when you say inventory isn't a cost of goods sold, it becomes a cost of goods sold when you actually do sell it, right?
Right. But until then, it's just cash tied up.
It's an asset.
It's an asset. The point is the brain surgeon's money sitting in a stock market account or in his mattress. The business owner's is sitting in inventory. It's different.
Yeah. And the professional services business, which I am, we have a slightly different problem in that the growth that we put into payroll, it kills us on the cash flow side of things because most professional services businesses are on a net 30, 60, 90 time payback. And so what happens is in order to grow, you have to hire people. Okay, so the clock is ticking because you're now paying salaries, right? So then you start
training people and training them. They're not even productive, right?
So the people are your inventory.
The people.
That's right.
That's great. Laura, that is such a great insight.
Aww.
The project you're doing. Tell me about the project you're doing with the Shopify agency. Have you paid them for all of the project?
Yeah, most of it. But more importantly, we've paid, the 4 people that are on Doug's team to be working on this full time.
Right.
Because we're paying that, we're paying the agency, but it's almost more work on our side.
That's really interesting. So I was asking because a lot of agencies, they don't collect fast enough, right? Or let's say there's an end of project payout, right? Where it's a big payday. Because the project goes long, their ability to get to that money can be really hampered. So for services businesses, people are the inventory. That is so great.
No, you're correct in that I don't need to hire anyone generally until I'm busy enough to need them. Whereas you need to hire the people to get busier. So you have to invest in people. And you're right. So you have that and we have inventory. Either way, the typical small business that's growing by definition is tight on cash.
Right. And you're having to keep it in the business for those situations. You got to keep the cash in the business but you have to pay taxes on it. So it's like this crazy thing where on paper, you look like you're rich, but actually you're just like holding the money for those situations.
Yep. Paycheck to paycheck.
Laura, does it even out in the end? Is the issue that a short-term cash
sure,
flow?
when I die. No, it doesn't. Not if you keep growing.
To clarify, is it a short-term cash flow problem in that you have the money tied up in inventory and you still have to pay the taxes, but you don't have the cash, but eventually that inventory becomes cost of goods sold and it's all fine, or no?
No.
Why not?
Because as the business grows, your inventory grows.
Yep.
So yes, if you are shrinking, then it works out okay because you start to liquidate inventory, but you probably liquidate the inventory for less than what you wanted to.
Way less, like 10 cents in the dollar less.
Yes. Yeah. No, it never. The only time, and even if you sell the business, I mean, people aren't going to pay you dollar for dollar what your inventory is worth. No, it never gets better.
You build the inventory with the expectation that the inventory is going to drive more sales. Sales are going to drive more EBITDA. And then when you have a bigger EBITDA, you can sell the business for more money. But the problem in the picture framing business is I talk to people, they go, oh, well, I'm going to try to sell my store for $150,000. That's how much inventory I have. And I go, no one cares what your inventory is. All they care about is your bottom line. You're paying yourself $52,000 a year. No one's going to go buy a job for $150,000. That's why you frequently, if not more than likely, the typical frame shop just closes one day. It doesn't sell. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, if policymakers really were serious about helping small businesses, this is what they would attack. I mean, like this issue, of paying taxes on pass-through revenues, no benefit at all to keeping money in the business, even though you have to do that. I mean, there are just no advantages. There are no tax advantages for small businesses, with a few exceptions, maybe the R&D tax credit and so forth. But even that's sketchy at best.
I think the problem is these people that are coming up with this stuff have never actually talked to a small business owner, and they're getting information from some trade association, and the people that work at the trade association don't really understand it either, because it does beg the question. This is fairly simple. Why doesn't the government, who claims to want to help small business, do that? Other than the greatest thing ever is the SBA loan, for sure. 10% down by real estate. That's a great government thing. Beyond that, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that, or tax investment credits have been helpful over the years, but the government could do better. There's no question.
My thanks to Shawn Busse, Jay Goltz, and Laura Zander. Thanks for sharing, everybody. One thing before you go. Everything we do at 21 Hats is created by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs to help us all learn together. If you get something out of listening to these podcast episodes, consider joining the conversation. You can do so by joining the 21 Hats Sounding Board, a Slack channel where you can tap the wisdom of a very smart crowd, or by becoming a founding member and joining our monthly Zoom forum, where you can be part of conversations much like the ones we have on the podcast. You can sign up for both by subscribing to the Morning Report. If you have any questions, you can email me at Lauren, Loren, at 21hats.com. And if you get something out of this podcast or out of the Morning Report, please tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell every business owner you know. Your word of mouth, owner to owner, will always be the most effective way to build this community for all of us. Thank you. It means a lot. This episode was produced by another entrepreneur, Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Thanks for listening, everyone.